today's tutorial is about triceps. So that bit at the back of the arm that tends to move of its own accord. We really want to get some strength and definition into that area. The problem with tricep work is very often it demands quite a lot on the wrists. And we don't like doing that because it's uncomfortable, which implies that we really need to do a little bit more work there. We need to put some strength into the wrists. It is one of the three main osteoporotic fracture sites, so the more work we can do to build up the muscle around the wrist itself, the better. So I'm going to give you several options so that when they crop up in the workouts, you've got plenty of alternatives. So the first one we're going to work with is on a raised surface. So I've just got a step here. You might have a chair at home. You might have your own step, okay? But something to raise you up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my fingers over the top, fingers facing forward, resting into the heels of the hands. Shoulders going to be drawn down away from the ears. Retract the chin, okay? Engage the muscles of the legs, of the groin, of the pelvic floor, of the abdominals. Now, if I was just to take my bottom here, okay, and this isn't a high step, so, I'm not going to get a huge dip. I want to make sure my elbows don't go out. I want to keep those shoulders wrapping back. So with my knees bent and my feet flat, I'm going to lift my hips up. Don't let them travel too far forward. Try and stay quite close. And then from here, I'm going to bend the elbows, taking my bottom towards the floor. It's not this. You're not going to get a tricep workout if you're not bending your elbows. It's the extension of the arm that you really need to work on. So we bend the elbows and we drive it back up again. So bend and lift. Bend and lift. Okay? And that is tough on the wrists. Okay? So there's your first option. Again, you can keep the weight back. The further you take the weight forward, the less weight there is in the arms. The other thing you want to avoid doing when you do this kind of thing, and this is pretty common on all the tricep work, is this. You don't want to sink inside your own shoulder girdle. So really lift up, get yourself away, and press and lift. If you want to add a bit more weight into it, extend the weight, the legs, keep the weight backwards, and again, you can go from here. You might need a higher rise for that. So you've got to try and get your hips up a little bit more. And again, it's all about bending and then straightening the arms. Tough on the wrists, rest them out when you need to. So that would be the work you could do on a raised platform. If you were to move that and go into a classic tricep dip. So this is the one that gets a bit muddied with the press up, okay? So you can do it off your knees, and I would suggest that probably if you were going to do this, you probably would do it off your knees, unless you're already incredibly strong in the upper body. So, that way, sweetheart, there you go, that way. So, you would put the hands forward. Now, on a press up, you'd probably take your hands wider. Okay, not helpful. You're going to take your hands wider. So you want your hands a little narrower than normal. On a press up, your elbows would go out. On a tricep dip, your elbows move back. So you kind of rub your elbows into the side ribs. Alright, so there's loads that you need to be aware of here. So what you don't want to do is overarch the back, so you've got to keep that corset wrapping around the centre of the body. So let's do it from a knee position. I'm going to bring my body weight forward, so I'm not behind my hands. And forward. I always say in tricep dips, you want your nose and your nipples beyond your knuckles. So see how that works for you. So I'm going to bring my body weight forward, so it's quite weighty into the wrists again. Abdominals are drawn in, I'm not overarching my back, I'm keeping a strong line. I'm going to bend my elbows, taking my body weight forward and then pushing up. So I'm not changing my back position. So I'm not getting so far and only able to come up by doing this. Okay, because all that's going to do is put stress into your lower back. So the abdominals draw in, body weight loads forward over and beyond the fingers. You tuck the elbows and you press it back up. Rub the elbows into the ribs, push it back up. It really doesn't matter how low you go. So if you just go an inch down and back up again, then that's your starting point. We all have a starting point. It's a lot heavier It's a lot heavier if you work from your toes, like a long press up, for example. So, same thing, this time with the legs straight, elbows rub in, bend the elbows, push it back up. I don't go as low, I'm not very strong. Okay, but again, this, having to do that to come back up again will do you no good at all. So there's a couple of options in a more gym-orientated, I suppose, environment. You'd probably see that more in a gym. Shake out your wrists. Here's the other option. Now, don't think for a minute that this is a soft option. This boils down to you creating a resistance. So, you're going to again roll the shoulders back and down, put the hands behind you, feet are down on the floor, bottoms down on the floor. Okay, so imagine that somebody is standing in front of you. You're going to bend your elbows go back, and actually at this point you offload weight from the wrist. So the wrists will feel quite tight here. Put the weight into the heels and the hands, and the weight is offloaded. You can almost lift your fingers. Keep the elbows squeezing in, keep the abdominals engaged. And now, as you breathe out, imagine that person that was stood in front of you has their hand against your chest and they're resisting you as you try to straighten yourself up. So you really feel the backs of those arms working, okay? So you bend and then resist to come up. Bend and resist. So you've got to feel that there is an element of effort to it. You can't just do this, it's just not going to work. You could, of course, do your elevated position here. So much like we did off the step, you could lift your hips up and you could bend and straighten. But again, what tends to happen is this starts to happen, it just looks a bit rude. So keep the hips elevated, draw the abdominals in, firm up those legs and that bottom, and bend the elbows and push. Bend the elbows and push. There's a lot of work in that. You'll want to frequently release your wrists. But there's a few ideas there of what you want to avoid and what you can do to modify your tricep work.